The Club World Cup, with 32 teams, is a tournament that revolutionized football. A competition that once seemed impossible to become reality, with several attempts, failures, controversies, and much more. So in this video, we'll see the entire history of the Club World Cup. Not just the history of FIFA's version, but every time people try to create a World Cup for clubs. To understand this history, we need to go way back to 1930, when FIFA launched the World Cup for national teams, bringing together the best squads to face off. So people started thinking, what if there was a World Cup for clubs instead of national teams? But that idea seemed impossible. Until the 50s, football began to change. In 1950, after the World War II chaos, the World Cup returned, this time in Brazil. But for the Brazilians, it was a historic embarrassment, losing the final to Uruguay. It was a blow. So to keep Brazilians from losing their love for the sport, the Brazilian FA decided to do something bold. Bring that idea of a Club World Championship to life, creating the so-called International Tournament of Champion Clubs. The idea was bold. Bring the best 16 clubs from Europe and South America to compete for one trophy, literally repeating the World Cup but with clubs. But imagine, it wasn't easy to bring teams all to one place, so they decided to scale it down to just 8, with clubs from Brazil, Uruguay, Spain, England, Sweden, Portugal, and so on. On paper, it was awesome, but then the problems started to show up. Many clubs that were domestic league champions like Tottenham, Atletico Madrid, Milan, Malmo, etc. didn't want to come to South America, so they were replaced by other weaker clubs. Even so, Brazil's representative, Palmeiras, went all in, defeating Juventus in the final. With that, Brazilian newspapers at the time declared Palmeiras World Club champion. But the problem is that many strong teams didn't attend. Then in the following years of the 1950s, other tournaments emerged trying to bring together the best clubs in the world. But they all always had withdrawals, little attention, and were considered just friendly tournaments. The problem was that there wasn't even a way to know which was the best club on a continent. It was all just guessing. Until 1955, a competition that would change everything was created, the European Cup. For the first time, we would know who actually was the best club of the continent. And inspired by this, in 1960, a tournament was created to determine the best in South America, the Copa Libertadores. So in 1960, UEFA and CONMEBOL teamed up to finally create a tournament to determine the best team in the world, the Intercontinental Cup. Europe versus South America. The winner would be considered the best team in the world. However, it didn't take long for this tournament to show serious problems. So the first edition was Real Madrid, led by Di Stefano, against Peñarol from Uruguay. It was a two-leg tie. So Real Madrid went to Uruguay, where it ended in a draw, and in the return leg at the Bernabeu, it was a massacre, 5-1 for the Spaniards. But instead of the Europeans dominating, it got really balanced. Peñarol in 1961, Pelé Santos twice in a row, then 2 in a row from Inter Milan, 3 consecutive South American titles, and 1 from Milan. But the tournament started to have a huge problem, the violence. So much so that in '69, against the Argentine Estudiantes, Milan's striker had his nose broken. But the biggest problem with this tournament started to really hit in the 70s. The idea was the best of South America against the best of Europe. But in 1971, Nacional from Uruguay faced, guess who? Panathinaikos. Yeah, Panathinaikos from Greece was never an European champion. The actual winner that year was Ajax, who literally refused to compete. And to the despair of the South American Confederation, it wouldn't be the only time. In 1973, Ajax refused to go again, with Juventus taking their place. In '74, Bayern refused, with Atletico Madrid going instead, and in 1975, the tournament didn't even happen. Finally, in 1976, Bayern decided to play, coming all the way to Brazil to win the title. But it didn't last long. In 1977, Mönchengladbach went instead of Liverpool. In 1978, the tournament didn't happen again. And in 1979, Nottingham Forest was another European who refused to go. The fact that it was a two-leg tie made Europeans think twice before accepting. They had to come all the way to South America, sometimes in a hostile environment. Plus, there wasn't much of a prize money to motivate them, so they preferred to focus on their own leagues. If nothing was done, the Intercontinental would literally disappear. Until 1980, UEFA and CONMEBOL came up with a solution. In 1980, the tournament went through a major change. Instead of 2 legs, it would now be made on a single match on neutral ground, in Tokyo, Japan. Why Japan? cause the tournament would now be sponsored by Toyota, increasing the prize money, making it more modern and with worldwide broadcasts. Now finally, the Europeans started to get interested. So much so that in 1980, Nottingham Forest, who had refused to go in 79, went for the tournament. But they lost to the Uruguayan side. It didn't start well for the Europeans, so much that in the following year, Liverpool lost 3-0 to the Brazilian side Flamengo. Up to this point in the Toyota Cup, it had been 2 straight South American wins, and that dominance continued. Peñarol from Uruguay in 82, Grêmio from Brazil in 83, and Independiente from Argentina in 84. Until 1985, when Juventus finally won. Then it became more balanced. Argentina's River Plate in 1986, then Porto, Nacional from Uruguay, Milan twice in a row, Red Star, Brazil, São Paulo twice in a row, Vélez Sarsfield from Argentina, Ajax, Juventus, Borussia Dortmund, Real Madrid, and Man United. But there was a big problem with this tournament. It wasn't actually a World Championship. It was just Europe versus South America. That's why FIFA didn't even get involved, leaving UEFA and CONMEBOL to organize it. But FIFA saw the opportunity that it was. So with other continents already having their own respected tournaments, they decided to step in, creating a tournament not just for Europe and South America, but every continent, creating the brand new FIFA Club World Championship. The first FIFA Club World Cup. So for this new tournament that was gonna be held in 2000, they invited the 1998 Libertadores champion and the 1999 Champions League winner Man United. But besides them, they also invited the African champion Raja Casablanca, Asia's Al Nassr, CONCACAF's Necaxa, South Melbourne from Australia, and even Real Madrid, the 1998 Intercontinental champion. Literally the best from each continent. And by coincidence, the stage would be the same as their first attempt to make a Club World Championship, Brazil. So they also invited Corinthians to represent them as the home team. It was 8 teams split into 2 groups of 4, where in the end, the best from each group would get a spot in the final. It could be even Man United versus Real Madrid, but the Brazilians dominated. Vasco and Corinthians finished on top of their groups. The first Club World Cup final was a fully Brazilian match, where Corinthians won the title on penalties thanks to the keeper Dida. But that year, something very strange happened, cause Corinthians isn't the only one that claimed to be the 2000 world champion. Even with FIFA's tournament, the Intercontinental Cup didn't stop. In 2000, it went on as usual, with the Argentine Boca Juniors defeating Real Madrid. Yeah, 2 tournaments happening at the same time. But FIFA didn't care. They scheduled another edition of the FIFA World Championship for 2001. The plan was to hold it every year, this time in Spain. But in the same year the tournament was supposed to happen, the company handling marketing literally went bankrupt. Meanwhile, the clubs didn't like the dates for the competition, set for July and August. So what happened? The tournament was cancelled. The plan was to return in 2003, but it didn't happen that year either. It seemed like FIFA's Club World Cup was going to die. Meanwhile, the Intercontinental Cup kept going strong. After Boca Juniors in 2000, it was Bayern in 2001, Real Madrid in 2002, Boca Juniors again in 2003, and Porto in 2004. If FIFA didn't do something, their tournament would be left in the past. So that's when they decided to take action. They met with the UEFA and CONMEBOL for an agreement. Hold the tournament in Japan with the same Toyota sponsorship and in the same month as the Intercontinental, in December. Literally a merger with the Intercontinental, creating what was officially known as the FIFA Club World Championship Toyota Cup Japan 2005. After 44 years, the old Intercontinental Cup was over. Now the FIFA's Club World Cup was back, but with a much different format than 2000. Instead of 2 groups with everyone facing each other, the Champions League and Libertadores winners would go straight to the semifinals, while the teams from other continents would play a match to see who advances to the semifinal. So instead of having to play 4 matches to become champions, South American or European teams would only have to play 2. In that edition, Liverpool defeated Deportivo Saprissa and São Paulo beat Al Ittihad to qualify for the final. Once again, it would be Europe versus South America, where the Brazilians surprised everyone.
And here's a chance here for Mineiro, and São Paulo scored!
The Brazilian São Paulo defeated Liverpool, winning the Club World Cup. Then in 2006, Ronaldinho's Barcelona faced another Brazilian side, where they were defeated 1-0. It was only in 2007 when Milan became the first European to win. Then it continued. Man United in 2008 against LDU from Ecuador, and Barcelona in 2009 against Estudiantes. Even with all the continents, the final always ended up being the same as the Intercontinental, South America versus Europe. Until 2010, something no one expected happened. In the semi-final, the South American representative lost to the African one, making the final for the first time in history be Europe versus Africa. Inter Milan against Mazembe from Congo. Then in the following year, Neymar Santos faced Barcelona, and everyone saw the quality gap between the two teams, 4-0. The Brazilians, who once dominated the Club World Cup, started getting humiliated, until 2012 came, and Corinthians, the first FIFA Club Championship winner, defeated Chelsea, bringing the Club World Cup title back to South America. So in the next year, everyone hoped Atletico Mineiro would repeat the feat, especially with Ronaldinho there. But the reality was different. After the Brazilian title in 2012, in 2013, the South American representative fell again in the semi-final, and they never managed to win the title again. It was Bayern Munich in 2013, Real Madrid in 2014, Barcelona in 2015, Real Madrid 3 consecutive times, and Liverpool. The truth is that the Club World Cup lacked competitiveness. Europeans dominated it. The title seemed like a mere formality for the Europeans to win, and people didn't celebrate it as much anymore. If FIFA wanted the world to treat this tournament with interest, it would need to make massive changes again. And this time they made such a big change that shocked everyone. In the year 2019, FIFA announced a massive new tournament. Instead of 7 teams, they'd create a Super Club World Cup with 24 teams, with multiple clubs from Europe, to happen every 4 years. A true World Cup, with the first edition set for June 2021 in China, meaning the smaller Club World Cup was on its last legs. But just 1 year after announcing the new Club World Cup, 2020 came. So of course, the 2021 Super Club World Cup was cancelled. It gave an extra life to the smaller Club World Cup. Bayern Munich won in 2020, Chelsea in 2021, Real Madrid in 2022, and Man City in 2023. That idea of a Super Club World Cup seemed forgotten. Until 2023, FIFA announced it was finally coming to reality with a new date, June and July 2025 in the United States. But not only that, they also increased the number from 24 to 32 teams. But history shows that it's not enough to just create a tournament and expect everyone to care. FIFA had to make sure that teams would go with full strength and not just send a reserve squad, turning the tournament into nothing more than a preseason event. So FIFA went all in on the prize money. The prize for the winner went from $5 million in the old format to a possible $125 million, 25 times more, which is even more than the estimated $114 million that PSG earned for winning the Champions League. After 95 years since the first World Cup, football now has a real Club World Cup. So did you like this video? If you enjoyed it, I think you're gonna like this one too. Thanks for watching and